Okay, I'm going to start. Great. Okay. Well, I'm Tom Líl'wat. I'm Director of Infrastructure for Líl'wat Nation, and with me on the presentation is Sean McEwen. Sean, you might have to mute or.
Hi, Sean McEwen's my name. I'm an architect. Pleased to be working on this project for Tom and the Líl'wat Nation.
Great. So I'm going to start this meeting with a little introduction. I believe you can see the presentation, the first slide, which is a location map. And I'm going to just explain a little bit of the context, and then Sean is going to talk about the design principles, project description, including sustainability objectives, development statistics, including parking. And then we'll open it up for some questions if there are any. So if you can look on the location map, you can see this is a piece of property in Mount Currie. It borders the IR10 of Mount Currie, the reserve lands, but this is a freehold piece of property that was acquired by the nation several years ago, and with the expectation that we would redevelop. So as you can see, it's central, right in what we call like Mount Currie Village. It's close to our new gas station, as well as Tilsdale Learning Center, and our main administrative office, which is down the street, called UBS. And basically, it's a 1.1 hectare site, about 3 acres, and it's currently zoned C1, community commercial. In 2019, Líl'wat Nation submitted an application to BC Housing for project development funding to work on a development for this site that would include affordable housing. And to do this, we needed to change the zoning. We needed more residential density for this site than what was allowed under C1 zoning. So we have, Sean and I submitted in July of 2020 an application to the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District, an application for rezoning, which we proposed at C2, the commercial multifamily zoning. We received our first response from the SLRD, which included the recommendation that we also needed to do an OCP amendment at the same time. So this is a joint rezoning and OCP amendment. In December of 2020, it went for its first reading at the SLRD board and received unanimous approval by that board. So we are currently right now in between first and second reading. That is basically the context. We are, as I mentioned, working with BC Housing through project development funding to advance our drawings, our development scheme, as well as our rezoning, and to essentially get a shovel-ready project in time for an allocation of housing by BC Housing. However, the site is large and can accommodate more than one building, and Sean will get into that. So I'm going to pass it on to Sean, who's going to talk about the design principles.
Right. I should say also that I'm one of a larger consultant team that's working on the project. Tom has engaged a civil consultant and an environmental consultant and a hydrology consultant. So there's a lot of different impacts for new development that we have to be cognizant of, and the work of those consultants have been integrated into our proposal for the site and into this presentation. broadly speaking, we wanted to create with this development because we're at a major intersection in the area for Highway 99, which we call Main Street, and at the corner of Líl'wat Lake Road, is really right beside the heart of Mount Currie Village. And what we see as a real opportunity with this site is to create a village feel and add to the sense of arrival into a compact town center on Main Street. And the long-term vision for Mount Currie is to make more pedestrian amenities and pedestrian enhancements. So it's not, simply a village on a highway. There'll be like a sense of arrival and a sense of village character, like we see on some other small towns along, say, the Caribou Highway. So we had this long-term vision of this kind of development adding to that feel. And right now, the land is vacant. There's some sort of minor dwellings along this portion of the highway. And we want to see kind of more of a town character being added with the addition of sidewalks and enhancing connections, pedestrian connections in the village, and also with the main goal of improving public safety. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, because we're in a low-lying area, our hydrology consultant and our geotechnical consultant has said that the landform has to be raised slightly so that we meet a flood control level on this site. So the new buildings have to be on a raised elevation anywhere from 4 to 6 feet above existing grade. And we've set the buildings, the proposed buildings, back from the highway in order to create a very low berm. We don't want to have an abrupt edge to these buildings, but have much more of a natural feel from Main Street up to the commercial level. And the transition area that we're talking about with this berm should be well landscaped and feature street trees regularly spaced along Main Street, so that we have a very welcoming village character and welcoming pedestrian scale along the frontage of the project. And we also want to make sure that we don't have a monolithic appearance and have one long, extremely long building. That we provide a restrained character that's low in height and not overwhelming on the street. So we have a restrained type of development that can provide a lot of variety in the elevation along the Main Street frontage. Next slide, please. So the development also features commercial spaces on the ground floor. So we've raised the landform, put the buildings on it, but we have a continuous pedestrian walkway proposed for the frontages of these buildings. And we will have I think quite an interesting pedestrian character by having small frontage commercial shops along that covered walkway. And then on the back side of the building, residential suites facing away from the highway and away from the highway noise. The residential units are proposed to be rental units and will feature a variety of unit types, including studios and 1-bedrooms and 2- and 3-bedroom apartments for families. So we're looking at a real wide type of social mix. All the units will be affordable, and Tom will talk a bit about some of the range of proposed rents that will be in the proposed housing a little later. We are going to be accommodating the needs of the automobile at the back of the site. Parking is going to be at grade. and hidden from view from the highway and the main pedestrian route behind the buildings. And the access to the parking would be thought of as more of a natural extension to the village street system. The Líl'wat Lake Road, Highway 99, is going to extend into the site and go through the parking area and then come back onto the highway at the very south end of our proposed project. Next slide, please. So here's a rendering of what we think the project might look like. We see it happening in two phases. The main building accommodating the affordable housing on the south portion, and then phase two, which would be kind of a more live-work type of development at the north end. Next slide, please. We have a lot of sustainability goals for the project. We want to make sure that we have good energy utilization in these buildings. We're going to have enhanced insulation levels, air tightness in the building envelope, and high quality heat recovery ventilation systems incorporated in the mechanical equipment for the buildings. We have a proposal for to generate some of the electricity that we'll need from arrays of solar panels on the roof. We're proposing a number of electric charging stations in the parking areas for the public to be able to use, as well as the residents. Generally speaking, we want to use native plant material in the landscaping. So these will be selected on the basis of being drought resistant during the high temperature summer months. We want to make sure that we don't have to water the plants too much. And we're going to use native grasses for the most part to create suitable habitats for a threatened fly that's been identified by our environmental consultant as that habitat has been threatened in recent years. And so we want to make sure that we're extending the amenable habitat for this particular creature in the future. Next slide, thanks. So here's our site plan. The main building in phase one to the south, and the phase two building to the north that is a little bit smaller, 2 stories rather than 3. And between them, we see a nice opportunity for a pedestrian plaza with stairs coming up from the street and then back down into the parking areas behind. You can see the parking for 110 stalls and the commercial spaces noted, and the electric vehicle charging stations noted too. We have quite a two large bike parking structures for covered bike parking in the rear, and also a children's play area that would be fenced off with a low fence for safety and well planted. And you can see the covered walkways on the highway side of these 2 buildings that then link through that public plaza in the middle, and the regular plantings of street trees to encourage to create the village feel that we were talking about. Next slide, thanks. So these are some of our floor plates that give you a sense of the character of the community that'll be housed in these buildings. This is the larger south building, and on the ground floor it has these commercial opportunities, storefronts. There's 5 of them along the facade of the highway side of the building, and also looking into that shared plaza area. And then we have our larger accessible units and our family units facing out into the rear areas, into the rear landscaped areas. Next slide. The next slide shows the different kinds of units that we have on the second floor, and the third floor is quite similar, where we have a mixture of larger 2 and 3 bedroom units for families, some studio units that you see in the green there in the center, and the others being 1 bedroom units. So there's quite a mix of different unit types on each floor. That shows the third floor, and the next slide provides some detail about the various units that we're proposing. And the next slide will show you a cross-section through the building, just to indicate the residential uses above and on the ground floor looking back, and then on the highway side, the commercial storefronts. And the bottom picture of the section shows kind of interruption of an exterior stairway to access the upper floors, which is also an elevator as well. So the buildings will be fully wheelchair accessible. Next slide, please. And this just shows you the end views of this south building. And the next slide shows the views on the top from the highway, and at the bottom, looking back into the landscaped areas and the parking areas at the rear. So you can see on the highway side, the post and beam walkway that will serve the frontage for the commercial tenants, and the variety that we're proposing on the upper floors with sort of indulations and articulation on the facade, so that there's some real variety on the facade, and not kind of a uniform look to the building. Next slide, thanks. So this gives you a view from the north building now down towards the south building, and just the nature of the frontage that we're talking about, with the berm coming up from the highway, and the regular plantings of street trees, providing some green in front of these buildings. Next slide, thanks. So the north building is a phase 2 of our project, and it shows on this level an idea for live-work type of project, type of units, so that this would be ideal for artisans and such, people involved in craft making, that want to live next to their place of work. So there's a 1-bedroom apartment attached to this commercial retail unit on the front. And similar to the south building, the notion is to have glazed overhead doors that on nice days people can open up completely, and so that the public that is taking advantage of visiting the site can walk along the walkway and look into these enterprises where people might be working on interesting things. Next slide, thanks. This shows the 1-bedroom units that are on the upper floor of this building. And our next slide, again, just shows the unit types. And then after that, the character of the cross-section of the building, where we have the walkway facing the highway, and then the units looking out over, it would be the children's play area at the rear of this building. Next slide, thanks. So this gives you an idea of some of the exterior character of this building, 2 stories. The element at the front, that's the 3rd story, is actually like a half story down, and that provides some of our service spaces that we need for the project. And the next slide shows again, the similar type of elevation treatment that was for the south building, with the covered walkway in front on the highway side, and a mixture of balcony, recessed balcony areas, and bedrooms and living rooms that face the street at the second floor. And in summary, what we have on the next slide is, again, our notions for the landscape. We have walkway connections up on along this gentle berm up to the raised pedestrian level. And we have a covered walkway in front of the buildings, and everything is marked by regular plantings of street trees. Between the two buildings, a public plaza with a little grove of trees, and then down some steps to the back parking and landscaped area that also has these bike parking structures. A children's play areas as a focal feature in the center, and some other green areas to the north, a planted green area, and then there's also a notion for community gardens. But we have space reserved for community gardens at the north, very north part of the of the site development area. Next slide. Some development statistics. The south building has 36 housing units at all. They're all affordable non-market units, all for rent. And you can see that we have quite a wide variety of different sizes of units proposed. So there'll be to serve different family groups in the community. 36 housing units total and 5 commercial units. And the phase 2, the north building, 17 housing units, then we see them as being all market residential units, 5 live-work units, and 12 as one-bedroom units. And our next, so in all, we're proposing 17 and 36 is 53 units on the site. And that drives the number of parking stalls that we'd be providing. We're providing the required number of stalls for commercial development and the required number for residential development. It's deemed, what we're providing is deemed appropriate for non-market housing, and we're accommodating the required 2 stalls per unit for the market development too. We also have to provide some visitor parking, and we're including accessible parking stalls for the residential units and for the commercial uses. And we provided for a total of 110 parking stalls, and we're providing also 2 loading bays for the project in order to service the project too for waste management. And the next slide says, thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, Tom and I would be very pleased to try and answer them.
Yeah, thanks everyone. So if you do have any questions, sure.
Thanks, Sean, for that presentation. That was really helpful. I'm wondering, is this project solely for rental to the nation, or will some units be available to non-band members?
What we've articulated to BC Housing was, and what would be kind of eligible under the Indigenous Housing Fund, would be that it would be a tiered selection process where we would, we've recommended Líl'wat Nation members have priority, Statlium members are second, and the broader community third.
Okay.
So that's kind of how we're looking at it. Yeah.
Thanks.
I don't know, Tom, if you've had a chance to delve into the range of potential rents that
Yeah.
that might be charged for these various units?
Well, for the larger building, it's a social housing project in a way. And currently, it would have, it all depends on how the allocations that BC Housing releases their formulas. But it definitely all rental, all affordable. We would be looking at a combination of probably rent geared to income units. So these are units that are at 30% income, and there would be a maximum household income for eligibility. Likely a 2-bedroom unit would be in the $900 range. And so 1-bedroom would be lower. Those are what we call the RGI units, rent geared to income. But we'd be also seeking a large proportion of what I would call social housing, or the more subsidized units, to get the rents down lower. So in that case, a 2-bedroom would likely be in the 5 to 600 range, and a 1-bedroom would be lower than that. And why we're doing that is because we've done a housing plan, we've done a sort of needs assessment within our community. We run our own rental housing, and the demand is, household incomes are low. And so the demand is, if we really want to have this project accessible to folks from an affordability point of view, that we're going to have to try and provide more units at a subsidized rate. So it all depends again on what the formula that BC Housing releases, but I would expect, 50-50, something like that. It means subsidized in RGI.
Just a comment for Sean. I can't tell what the treatment is on the balconies. It looks like opaque glass. I can't tell, but I would just suggest that when you get to a DP stage, if this goes that far, that you look for opaque or solid balconies. We've seen a few of these projects going up in the village of Pemberton with a clear balcony, and when people put all their stuff on it, it starts to look pretty junky when you look at it from the road. So any way to kind of hide that would be, I think, would make your project look a lot better.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the advice. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, we do intend to go to, take this to DP, and the details around the income mix, as well as more details on design, would certainly be flushed out. But the unit count would likely stay the same, and the massing of these buildings.
I have a lot of DP related comments, but I think I'll save those because that's not really what this meeting is about.
Yeah, all in good time. It'll
yeah.
Hopefully, we'll get a chance to improve aspects of the design, definitely in the coming months. This is definitely a first cut at looking at the development potential for the site, and I think we've kind of it's a good start, and we have to fine tune what we've done and make sure that the project just keeps improving while it's on paper.
So in conclusion, if there's no more questions, I would say that our next steps are, we have to finish our conversations with the Ministry of Transportation. They've accepted our traffic study. They need to accept our drainage plan. And then we have to follow through with the to second reading and third with the SLRD. And at the same time, we would, between Sean and I, would be to advancing our drawings and our details for DP. Yeah, so that's everything. Are there any more questions?
I don't have any. Thanks for your presentation.
Okay. Well, I think I'm going to conclude it. Thanks, Sean, and thank you everyone who attended. And certainly we're available for questions if anyone has any.
Thanks, Tom. And we will be able to get, hopefully maybe we can get the slides and the presentation. We'll be able to link that on the SOV website so we can share that out too for people that weren't able to attend live today, if that works. Yes.
Okay. I'll reach out to you in the coming days with that. Okay.
Great idea, Claire.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Sean.
Bye for now.
Right.